Let's turn this into this. Hello fellow CNC nuts, and welcome. Today we're continuing on from where we left off last week with our Aztec calendar. We now need to take our MDF cutout here and transform it in to the finished work of art. And nothing says let's get started more than a coat of shellac. The one thing I like about shellac is it immediately soaks in to the MDF and will give it a good seal. Just put plenty on the brush and let it run in there and soak into the MDF. Now unfortunately I don't have a spray booth, so I'm going to do the next best thing. I'm going to make one. Well, that solves the spray booth problem. Next, the spray problem. And for that we're going to use this here. It's made by Plasticoat and it's just a metallic paint, the colour of which is called copper. So while the paint's drying on our copper coated calendar, I was going to look at dealing with this one. Again, it's been coated in shellac. The shellac's been allowed to dry, and my plan was to spray it with this here flex stone paint. It gives a granite-like look straight out of the can. Unfortunately, a quick test spray showed it would fill in all the details. I would have been better off just cutting a circle. My next plan was to coat it in a water-based stain and use my graining tool to put a wood-like effect on the calendar, make it look as if it had been carved straight from wood. Unfortunately, the water-based stain had all dried up, so I've had to give that idea up as well. Nothing for it but to go back to the original calendar and apply some black paint to it. I've allowed 4 days for the paint to harden. I'm now applying a coat of black acrylic paint and following it up with a damp cloth to wipe the surface, then a dry cloth, and finally a paper towel which I'm wrapping around a sanding block. You can see here how the black paint has gone into the grooves, and by wiping the surface I'm left with that copper colour. Now you'll notice that the colour is a bit darker than it was previously, and that looks much better than if it was the original bright copper. You want to work your way through small areas at a time. Don't try and do the whole lot in one hit. Keep wiping it. Try and keep that copper top clean. I'm aided here by the fact that it's winter in New Zealand and the workshop is quite cool, around about 8 or 9 degrees Celsius. If you're trying to do this in summer, it's going to be much harder because that paint will dry a lot quicker. Just work at your own pace and in accordance with your work environment conditions. Now don't panic if you find that the black paint is dirtying the copper coat a little bit more than you want. We can go back before the paint gets a good chance to dry and clean that surface a lot better. Just do the best you can and keep that copper coat as clean as you can. Now, interestingly enough, this is not the technique I used when I did my original one. It's similar, but when I originally did them, I used small artist brushes for painting into the grooves, trying to keep it as clean as possible, doing only very small areas, and it took hours. This new method is a lot quicker and just as effective. Now once the surface was complete, I put a block under it and then concentrated on the edges. The edges of mine are going to be black, but I just need to keep that very edge piece the copper colour. So next I'm going to use some methylated spirits to clean up the very top of the calendar. You'll find that methylated spirits will affect acrylic paint but not the spray-on paint. Taken a paper towel and I'm just putting a little bit of methylated spirits on it. I'm going to wipe the cloth over the surface of the calendar, and you can use it either wrapped around the sanding block as I'm doing here, or just hold it in your hand and just keep it flat. You can see here areas like this here that are a bit dark in here. If I take my cloth and just rub it, that black comes off and I'm left with a better copper looking colour, and it's a nice dark, it's a darker copper than the original, which is what you want. You don't want that bright copper colour because it's quite distracting. There you have it, the finished work of art. Quite easy to paint once you understand how. Now some of that may be due to the new technique I used, and some more of it may be due to the fact that it's winter here and quite a bit cooler, and I changed the paint I used. Last time I used an artist paint, and I think it might have been drying a bit too quick. This time it's winter here. It's not full winter, but it's still pretty cool, and it's below the drying temperature of this paint, which is 10 degrees, which gave me plenty of time to work the paint and clean it off the surface. If you're in somewhere that's hot, try and find somewhere cool to do it and work smaller areas. Don't expect methylated spirits to clean it off and work miracles. You will get a certain amount of it off, but you won't get it all off. In my case, it's just left that slight black film on it, which actually makes it look aged. It looks really good on this here, but if you put it on too thick and let it dry, meths won't be able to remove it. As for the other calendar, I'm going to have to think about it. I really like the idea of a wood grain pattern on it, but unfortunately I'm going to have to wait until I get some more water-based stain. Well, that about wraps it up for this week. Why not check out my website www.CNCnutz.com. Next week I plan to go over the VBit testing files I mentioned in my previous video. I didn't really explain it very well, and I think it's caused a bit of confusion. All that remains me to do is to thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Cheers!